My name is Sarah Collins. I'm 34 years old. And I need to tell you something that I've been carrying around in my chest like a stone for the better part of 2 decades. 17 years ago, my parents kicked me out of the house. I was 17, sophomore year of high school. It was a cold October night, the kind that bites through your hoodie before you even step off the porch, and I was standing on the front steps with a duffel bag at my feet, watching my mom point at the driveway like I was a piece of furniture she'd decided didn't match anymore. She didn't hug me. She didn't cry. She just pointed. And 3 days later, my dad, a man who coached my soccer team until I was 9, a man who used to call me his little firecracker, mailed me a certified letter. Signature required. Legal language. Kind of thing you send to a contractor you're firing, not a child you're abandoning. I kept that letter. All 17 years I kept it. 'Cause I always had a feeling that someday I would need it. I just didn't know how right I was going to be. Before I start, hit that subscribe button, drop your city and time in the comments. I read every single one. Let me back up. Let me take you to where this whole thing started, because you need to understand the world I grew up in before you can understand what they did, and why what happened last month shook 180 people to their core. Portland, Oregon. October 2007. I was the youngest kid in the Henderson family. I was 17 years old. My dad, Robert Henderson, ran a mid-size accounting firm downtown, Henderson Financial Partners, established 1993. My mom, Patricia, had been the chair of our school's booster club for as long as I could remember and volunteered at our church like it was her second job. We sat in the third row at Cornerstone Community Church every single Sunday. We wore matching outfits to family photos. We were, on paper, picture perfect. But every family has a pecking order. I learned mine real early. My brother Tyler was 20 and pre-med at Oregon State. The golden child, the one my parents bragged about at every dinner party, the one whose name was basically a brand in our house. My sister Jenna, 18, was studying education and had a boyfriend my mom already liked. She was the pretty one, the agreeable one, the one who never rocked the boat. And then there was me. I was what my mom used to call our little surprise. Born 6 years after Jenna, when my parents thought they were done. I never quite fit the mold they'd already built for this family. My grades were fine, but I wasn't pre-med. I liked art and books and sneaking off to the public library 3 afternoons a week just to breathe. I wasn't a problem kid, but I wasn't easy either. I had opinions, I asked questions, and in the Henderson house, questions were not always welcome. My dad had this saying he repeated constantly: "Your reputation is your currency. You spend it right, you're rich. You spend it wrong, you're broke forever." I was 17. I didn't understand yet that I would become the transaction that bankrupted him. I met Jake at the downtown library the second week of September 2007. He was 18, a senior at Jefferson High, the public school, not the private academy where I went. He worked weekends at his uncle's garage. He had this laugh that sounded like it surprised even him, like joy caught him off guard. He found me crying in the fiction section on a Tuesday afternoon after my mom had forgotten to pick me up from school. Again. He slid into the chair across from me, didn't make it weird, just said, "Hey, you good?" Nobody had asked me that in a really long time. We started dating secretly. 2 months of library meetups and long walks and texting under the covers at night. He was kind in this steady, quiet way that I'd never experienced from a boy before. He made me feel like I wasn't too much or too little, like I was just exactly right. And then, mid-November, I stared at 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test in the bathroom of a gas station 3 miles from school. I was 17 years old. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. When I told Jake, he didn't run. He didn't make excuses or go quiet on me. He held my hands and looked me in the eye and said, "We're gonna figure this out, okay? You're not doing this alone." I wanted to believe him. Part of me did. But I knew my parents. I knew what reputation meant to them. And I knew that when I told them, the first question out of their mouths wouldn't be, "Are you okay?" It would be, what are people going to think? I decided to tell them at Sunday dinner. I didn't know it would be the last dinner I'd ever eat in that house. November 18th, 2007. 7:40 in the evening. Chicken casserole was overcooked and nobody mentioned it. My dad was going on about some client dispute. My mom was mentally planning her Christmas committee agenda out loud. Tyler was home for the weekend, talking about his biochemistry exam. Jenna was nodding at everything like a bobblehead. I was staring at my plate, counting the seconds until I could force the words out. I have something to tell y'all. Table went quiet. For faces turned toward me. I'm pregnant. My mom's fork hit her plate like a gunshot. My dad didn't move for what felt like a full 10 seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice water. Who is the father? His name is Jake. He goes to Jefferson High. My mom's face went the color of ash. The public school? He's a good person, Mom. He comes from a... What does his father do? My dad cut me off. He lives with his uncle. He works at a garage. The silence that followed lasted 11 seconds. I counted. Then my dad stood up and I watched something shift in his face, like a door closing behind his eyes. You will not keep it. Richard, my mom started. She will not blow up everything we've built. He looked at me like I was a stranger. Like I was something to be managed. If you keep that baby, you are not part of this family. By 9 p.m., I was standing on the front porch with a duffel bag at my feet. My mom had opened the door and pointed. Not my dad, my mom. Tyler and Jenna watched from the upstairs window. Neither of them came down. I called Jake from a payphone at the corner gas station. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely dial. They kicked me out, I said when he picked up. 20 minutes later, his uncle's truck pulled up. Jake jumped out before it even stopped rolling, threw his jacket around my shoulders, and held me while I sobbed into his chest. I got you, he said. I got you, Sarah. We had maybe $250 between us, a truck with questionable brakes, and no plan whatsoever. That's when Miss Beverly Okafor saved my life. She lived 4 houses down from my parents, 60 years old, retired school librarian, the only person on that block who didn't treat my dad like he was mayor. She'd seen me from her window. She'd watched long enough to understand what was happening. When I knocked on her door at 9:30 at night, she didn't ask a single question. She just opened it wider and said, "Come on in, baby. You're not standing out in that cold." 2 weeks later, Jake found us a studio apartment in Seattle. $400 a month above a laundromat that smelled like bleach and old fabric softener. The walls were thin and the radiator rattled all night, and it was the most beautiful place I'd ever lived because it was ours and nobody could take it away from us. My dad had the papers drawn up the night they threw me out. I know because he mailed them to me 3 days later. Certified mail, signature required, like he wanted to make sure I understood the transaction was complete. The document stated that Sarah Marie Henderson was hereby removed from any claim to the Henderson family estate, and that the Henderson family bore no legal or moral obligation to her or, and I quote, any dependent born to her. Any dependent born to her. That was my daughter. Reduced to a legal phrase. Erased before she ever drew a single breath. I kept that paper. I've kept it for 17 years. Haley Marie Collins was born on June 3, 2008, at Harborview Medical Center in Seattle. 7 pounds 2 ounces. Her dad's brown eyes and my stubborn chin. She came into the world screaming her head off, and I thought, good. Preem. Don't you dare let anyone make you small. The first 4 years were a blur of pure survival. Jake worked double shifts at a body shop in Ballard while I finished my GED, then started community college 2 classes at a time, whatever I could manage around Haley's nap schedule. We lived on rice and beans and day-old bread from the bakery down the block. I learned to stretch $1 until it hollered. I sent my parents a birth announcement when Haley was born. Nothing back. I sent a photo on her first birthday. Silence. By her second birthday, I stopped trying. Jake and I never got married. We kept saying someday when we had a little more breathing room when life calmed down. Someday kept getting pushed back. Then on February 12, 2012, a semi ran a red light on Aurora Avenue. Jake was on his way home from a night shift. The officer who came to my apartment door told me he died on impact. He was 21 years old. Haley had just turned 3. The life insurance policy through his job paid out $14,000. That's what they gave me. $14,000 for 21 years of the best man I'd ever known. I was 22 years old. Single mom. $14,000. No family to call. I could have given up. I didn't. I'd been doing small design work while Jake was alive, rearranging apartments for neighbors, staging units for real estate agents willing to take a chance on a young mom with zero credentials but apparently a real eye for space. After Jake died, I threw myself into that work like it was the only rope I had. 'Cause it was. Until in 2013, I met Vivian Cross at a design workshop at Seattle Central College. She was 53, freshly retired as creative director at a major firm, looking for something to pour her energy into. For reasons I still can't fully explain, she looked at my beat-up portfolio and chose me. "You've got something," she told me. "It's rough around the edges, but it's real. Let me help you sharpen it." 2015, with Vivian's mentorship and a small business loan it took me 3 tries to get approved for, I launched Hearth & Home Design Studio out of a converted supply closet in a shared workspace on Capitol Hill. 2016, 11 employees. Just under $1 million in revenue. 2017, a local magazine ran a profile on me. From teen mom to design CEO, Sarah Collins' story. The journalist spent 3 days interviewing me about getting pregnant at 17, getting cut off, losing Jake, building a business from nothing. I told her everything. Except my parents' names. Not to protect them. To protect Haley from anyone who might try to connect her to people who'd tried to make her disappear. 2018, 20 employees. Revenue pushing $3.5 million. Corner office overlooking Capitol Hill. And my daughter Haley was 17, a senior in high school, headed to the University of Washington in the fall, sharp and fierce and more herself than I ever got to be at her age. 17 years. No contact from the Henderson family. Not a card. Not a call. Not a single word. Until last Tuesday. November 5, 2024. 6:52 in the evening. I just pulled off a major win at work. A tech executive's waterfront renovation, serious money, and I was coming home with my head still full of fabric swatches when I turned onto my block and saw the car. Black BMW. Oregon plates. I sat in my driveway for a full minute with both hands on the steering wheel, just watching. The man had gone gray. His shoulders had that slight hunch that comes with getting older. The woman still had that posture, spine straight, chin up, like she was permanently bracing for something embarrassing to happen. Robert and Patricia Henderson. My parents. I hadn't seen them in 17 years. I thought about driving away. I thought about a lot of things. But I was 34 years old. I owned a company. I had built a life that nobody handed me. And I was not about to run from 2 people who'd already taken enough from me. I got out of the car. My dad spoke first. "Sarah." "You look," he paused, scanning my coat, my bag, my house. "Well." My mom stepped forward. Her face had more lines now. Her hair was that careful shade of highlighted blonde that doesn't quite match the age behind the eyes. "We know about your son, Sarah. We know you have a son." I stared at her. "We'd like to meet him," my dad added. "We thought it was time to reconnect. As a family." I almost laughed. 17 years of silence. 17 years of pretending I didn't exist. And now they were standing on my porch asking to meet a grandson, by the way, who did not exist, like this was a totally reasonable Tuesday evening request. I let them in. I still don't fully understand why. Maybe I just needed to hear what 17 years of silence had actually been for. My dad sat in my living room like he was appraising property, eyeing the hardwood floors, the built-in shelves, the original artwork. My mom perched on the edge of my couch like she might catch something. "Your anniversary," I said. "That's what this is about." 45 years, my dad said. November 16th. We're having a celebration at the Riverside Hotel. 180 guests. The city councilman is coming, Pastor Greg, the chamber board. And what does that have to do with me? My mom exchanged a look with my dad. There have been questions, Sarah. About you. About what happened. People remember we had a third child. They've asked. We've always said you moved to Europe to pursue your design career, my dad added. But the questions have gotten more persistent lately. So you need me to show up and smile. Make the whole picture look clean. We need your son, my mom said, her voice going firm. We've told people about him. Our grandson. He should be there. Representing the next generation. The room went very still. Who told you I have a son? That magazine article. My dad waved his hand. The profile from a few years back. Mentioned your child, your business. We were impressed, honestly. More than we expected. More than they expected. I had to breathe through that one. The article said child. You filled in the rest yourselves. My dad reached into his briefcase and pulled out a check. Blank. Set it on my coffee table like he was making an offer on a piece of real estate. We're prepared to compensate you. $200,000. You bring your son to the party, stay 3 hours, take some photos. Then you go back to your life and we go back to ours. I looked at the check. Then at my mom, who was nodding like this was the most sensible thing in the world. Like we were negotiating a business deal and not the price of my daughter's right to exist. And if I say no? My dad's jaw tightened. We'd prefer not to involve your son directly. But if necessary, we can reach out to him ourselves. Explain the family history. Help him understand where he comes from. It was a threat wrapped in a bow. Soft enough to deny, sharp enough to cut. You want to contact my child, I said slowly, and tell them your version of what happened. We want to be a family again, my mom spread her hands. Isn't that what you've always wanted? I was about to answer when I heard footsteps on the stairs. And everything changed. Mom? Everything okay? I heard voices. Haley stopped at the bottom of the stairs, textbook still tucked under her arm. She was in sweats and her high school hoodie, dark hair up in a messy bun, looking exactly like what she was, a 17-year-old who'd been doing homework in her room. My mom stood up from the couch. Her expression cycled through confusion, then calculation, then something that looked real close to horror. Who is this? This is Haley. I stepped slightly in front of her without even thinking about it. My daughter. Your granddaughter. Daughter? My dad's voice cracked. But the article said we thought. The article said child. You assumed the rest. Haley's eyes moved slowly from me to the two strangers in our living room. I watched understanding settle across her face like a cloud rolling in. These are them, aren't they? It wasn't a question. The grandparents who threw you out when you were pregnant with me. My mom flinched. That's not, it was more complicated than. Which part was complicated? Haley crossed her arms. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling. The part where you kicked a 17-year-old out in the cold? Or the part where you spent 17 years pretending she was off living in Europe? Young lady, my dad started. I'm not your young lady. I'm the granddaughter you never wanted to know. The one you tried to make disappear. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. I know everything. Mom never hid it from me. I know about the letter. I know about the estate papers. I know exactly what you did. My parents sat in stunned silence. Haley looked at me. They came for a grandson, didn't they? Someone they could show off. Yes. She turned back to them with a calm that honestly scared me a little. Surprise. My dad recovered faster. The lawyer in him, the deal-maker, started recalculating. A granddaughter, he said carefully. That works. We can adjust the story. Haley can come to the party as what? Haley cut in. The secret granddaughter you've been hiding for 17 years? The daughter of the teen mom you threw away. We could say you were living abroad. Recently returned. A surprise reunion. I was born in Seattle. I've never left the country. I'm a senior at Roosevelt High. Haley let out a short laugh that had no warmth in it whatsoever. Do you even hear yourselves? I stood. I think it's time for you to go. I'll consider what you've said. But not tonight. The door my mom turned back. This is an opportunity, Sarah. A chance to heal. Don't let old wounds cost you your future. I watched them walk to their car. Watched my dad help my mom into the passenger seat, same as he'd done 1,000 times before. Like this was just another evening. When the BMW disappeared around the corner, Haley turned to me. You're not actually thinking about doing this, right? I looked at my daughter, this sharp, brave, entirely unbuyable young woman I'd raised by myself. No, I said. But I'm not done with them either. That night, after Haley went to bed, I dug a fireproof box out of the back of my closet. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside was the certified letter. 3 pages of legal language, notarized and signed by Robert Allen Henderson and Patricia Lynn Henderson, witnessed by a notary on November 21, 2007, stating that Sarah Marie Henderson was hereby removed from all family claims, and that any dependent born to her was likewise removed. I photographed each page, loaded them to cloud storage, made backups. Mom! I looked up. Haley was standing in the doorway in her pajamas. Couldn't sleep either, she said. She sat beside me on the bed and picked up the first page of the letter, reading slowly. When she finished, her eyes were bright but dry. She wasn't going to cry over this. I knew my kid. They really did it, she said quietly. They just cut you out like you were a bad line in a contract. They did. What are you going to do with all this? I looked at the documents spread across the comforter. I don't know yet, but whatever it is, they won't be able to spin it. Haley nodded slowly. I might have an idea. The next morning, I made a call I hadn't made in over a year. Miss Beverly Okafor picked up on the second ring. Sarah? Baby, is that you? Miss Beverly. I felt something loosen in my chest just hearing her voice. I need to tell you something. I told her everything. The visit, the fake grandson, the check, the party. When I finished, the line was quiet for a long moment. Those people, she finally said. 17 years and they haven't changed one single bit. Miss Beverly, that night, November 18th, 2007. You said you saw everything from your window. Honey, I watched that whole thing. I saw you standing on that porch. That little bag. Saw the lights go off inside. Her voice hardened. I should have come out sooner. I've thought about that a lot over the years. Do you still have your security camera footage from back then? A pause. You know, I never delete anything. Old teacher habit. Document everything. Let me check. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with an email. A grainy image. Timestamped 9:23 p.m., November 18th, 2007. A 17-year-old girl standing on a front porch in the cold with a duffel bag at her feet. The address, my parents' address, partially visible in the upper corner of the frame. "That's you," Miss Beverly said when I called her back. "That's the night. Would you be willing to say that officially if it came to it?" "Baby, I've been waiting 17 years for someone to ask me that." Her voice was iron. "Whatever you need, I'm there." That evening, I spent some time rereading my own story. The magazine profile was still online. From teen mom to design CEO, Sarah Collins's story. Shared over 11,000 times since 2021. The journalist, a woman named Dana Park, had spent 3 days with me. I'd been careful. I told the truth, but not the whole truth. I mentioned estrangement without naming names or cities. I mentioned becoming a mother young without identifying the people who'd thrown me away. Not to protect them. To protect Haley. Now I scrolled the comments. Thousands of them. "This woman is unreal. Imagine being abandoned by your own family and building this. Someone should make a movie about her." And then, posted about 3 weeks earlier, "Does anyone know if she's related to the Henderson family in Portland? The accounting firm people? Someone at my church mentioned it. So that's how they found me." One comment thread and my mom's overactive imagination did the rest. My phone rang. Vivian Cross. "Word travels fast in this city," she said, skipping the hello. "I heard your parents showed up after almost 2 decades of radio silence. You okay?" "Trying to figure out what to do." "What I know," Vivian said, "is that you've spent 17 years proving who you are without those people. Don't give them 3 hours to undo that." She was right. But I was already thinking bigger than 3 hours. Thursday, November 7th. My phone showed an Oregon number I didn't recognize. I answered. "Sarah." The voice was deeper than I remembered. Weathered. "It's Tyler. My brother." I hadn't heard his voice in 17 years. "I know I've got no right to call you," he said. "I know there's nothing I can say that covers what I didn't do. But I need you to know some things before whatever happens next. Then talk." He told me about the grandson story. How it started with my mom reading the magazine article 2 years ago, not carefully, just skimming and seeing child and successful business and building this whole fantasy around it. A grandson. An entrepreneur. A shining example of the Henderson legacy carrying forward. She'd started telling people at church, at her committee meetings, at dinner parties. My dad went along with it. They'd been dining out on my imaginary son for months. "She invented an entire person," I said flatly. "Yeah." Tyler's voice cracked. "And then she dragged Dad into it and it snowballed." "Why are you telling me this?" Long pause. "Because I was a coward. I watched from that upstairs window 17 years ago and I didn't come down. Carried that my whole life, Sarah. Jenna has too." He exhaled. "We were wrong. We've always known we were wrong. And now, if you decide to show up at this party, you won't be alone. Me and Jenna will be there. We're not gonna let them hang you out to dry. Not this time." I didn't know what to say to that. We talked for almost 2 hours. He told me about growing up under our parents' approval system, the way it worked like a reward circuit, constantly being calibrated against behavior, against performance, against how things looked. He told me Jenna's oldest kid was 9 years old and terrified of making mistakes, and that Jenna cried about it sometimes because she recognized herself. "Why'd you never reach out before now?" I finally asked. Long silence. "I had your number for 3 years. Found it through your business website. Dialed it at least a dozen times." His voice dropped. "Every time I hung up before it connected. Because if I talked to you, I'd have to admit what I let happen. And I wasn't ready." "What changed?" "Watching them show up at your door demanding a grandson that doesn't exist. Watching Mom try to buy you like you're a prop for their party photo." He exhaled. I realized if I don't say something now, I never will. I thought about the brother who used to play board games with me when our parents were at their gala dinners. The one who taught me to ride a bike in the backyard. There's one more thing, Tyler added. The party is being live-streamed. Pastor Greg's idea. A unity moment for the congregation. They've got a camera crew coming. A live stream. 180 people in the room. And who knew how many watching from home? Thank you, Tyler, I said. What are you gonna do? I'm starting to see the whole picture now. That evening, I sat at my dining table with Haley and Vivian and laid out everything I had. The disinheritance letter. Miss Beverly's time-stamped footage. Tyler's confirmation about the fake grandson. They want a performance, Vivian said, swirling her wine. They want you to show up, smile, and validate 17 years of lies. They want to use you, Haley said quietly. The same way they've always used you. As something to manage. Not someone to love. I looked at both of them. The mentor who'd believed in me when I had nothing. The daughter I'd built everything for. I'm going to that party. Haley's head snapped up. Not to give them what they want, I said. To give myself what I need. I spread the documents out on the table. They've spent 17 years controlling my story. Telling people I went to Europe. Inventing a grandson. Making me disappear. And I'm done disappearing. You want to disappear, Vivian said slowly. I want to tell the truth. In front of every single person who matters to them. On their stage. Their party. During their live stream. Not for revenge. Not for revenge. I looked at my daughter. To stop letting them pretend I don't exist. Haley was quiet for a second. Then, I'm coming with you. Haley. They need to see who I actually am. She crossed her arms. Not their imaginary grandson. Me. I reached for her hand. You sure about this? It could get messy. I've spent my whole life knowing my grandparents chose their reputation over my mom, she said. And by extension, over me. I'm sure. I called Tyler that night. Your offer, does it still stand? Me and Jenna talked. We're ready. Don't warn them I'm coming. Can you do that? Yeah, I can do that. Good. I looked out at the Seattle skyline. The lights of the city that had taken me in when my own family threw me out. Because in 10 days, we're going to show them what family actually means. Saturday, November 16th, 2024. 7:15 p.m. The grand ballroom at the Riverside Hotel was exactly what my parents would have chosen. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths pressed flat as paper. Centerpieces that probably cost more than my first month's rent in Seattle. 180 guests in cocktail attire, clutching champagne flutes, making small talk about vacation homes and stock portfolios. I stood in the entrance with Haley beside me. She wore a deep blue dress, simple and clean. A chosen charcoal gray. Professional. Quiet. Possible to overlook. You good, she whispered. I'm about to walk into my parents' 45th anniversary party and tell 180 people they've been lied to for 17 years. I squeezed her hand. I'm terrified. That's not what I asked. I looked at her. Yeah, I'm good. We walked in. The room was arranged around a raised platform at the far end, a small stage where my parents would give their speeches. A camera crew was setting up the live stream. I could see the little red light already blinking. And there they were. Robert and Patricia Henderson on that stage, glowing with the particular confidence of people who believe they've won. My mom in champagne silk. My dad in a tailored charcoal suit. Both of them working the room, shaking hands, accepting congratulations. They hadn't seen us yet, but heads were starting to turn. Someone near the door whispered, Isn't that the woman from that magazine article? The whispers spread like water finding its level. And then my mom looked up. My dad had already started his speech. 45 years of marriage has taught me one thing above all else: family is everything. Patricia and I have built our whole lives around that principle. Our children, our community, our faith. His voice carried through the whole room, amplified, captured by the live stream camera. Comment section on the church Facebook page was already rolling. Beautiful couple. What an inspiration. My mom saw me first. Her smile froze like someone had hit pause on it. I started walking toward the stage. Crowd parted, not dramatically, not like some movie moment, but people just kind of stepped aside, sensing the air had changed. Haley walked beside me, chin up, step steady. Tyler appeared at the edge of the crowd. Jenna next to him. They didn't try to stop me. They just stood there, present. Sarah, my dad's voice through the speakers strained now. What a surprise. We weren't. Climbed the 3 steps to the platform. The live stream camera tracked me automatically. I could feel 180 pairs of eyes. Hi, Dad. I took the microphone from his hand. Hi, everyone. The room went absolutely silent. Not awkward cocktail party silent. Kind of silence that happens when a whole room holds its breath at the same time. My name is Sarah Collins. A lot of you probably don't know me. I'm Robert and Patricia's youngest daughter. I paused. The one they told you moved to Europe 17 years ago. The silence stretched tighter. I didn't move to Europe. I watched 200 eyes go wide. The live stream comment section exploded. On November 18, 2007, my parents found out I was pregnant. I was 17 years old. That same night, they packed my stuff and put me out. Their lawyer drafted papers the next day removing me from the family, legally and, they said, morally. Someone in the back gasped. I kept going. They told everyone I was abroad pursuing my career. For 17 years, they pretended I didn't exist. And when they came to my door last week, after 17 years of total silence, it wasn't to apologize. It was to ask me to bring my son to this party. A son they'd been telling all of you about for months. I reached into my bag and pulled out the letter. 3 pages. Notarized. I held it up toward the camera. This is the document my dad mailed me 3 days after throwing me out. It says I give up all rights to the Henderson family estate, and that the family has no obligation to me or, and I'm quoting directly here, any dependent born to me. I pointed to where Haley was standing at the edge of the stage. That dependent is my daughter, Haley. Your granddaughter. 17 years old. Never met you once in her life. And the grandson you've been telling everyone about? I looked directly at my parents. He doesn't exist. You invented him based on a magazine article you didn't read carefully. My dad grabbed for the microphone. Sarah, this is not the place. When is the place, Dad? I kept it just out of his reach. When is the right time to tell the truth? You came to my house and offered me $200,000 to keep pretending. $200,000 to make your lie look real in front of these people. I turned back to the room, to the camera. I'm not here for money. I'm not here to blow up your lives. I'm here because I'm done being invisible. I'm done letting you tell my story. Pastor Greg stepped forward. Robert. His voice was quiet and heavy. Is this true? My dad couldn't find the words. My mom had started crying. I had only ever seen Patricia Henderson cry once in my entire childhood, at her own mother's funeral. Now tears were running straight down through her makeup. Robert. Pastor Greg again. I need an answer. My dad looked at the room. The city councilman. The chamber board. 30 years of colleagues and neighbors and church friends who had respected him, trusted him, built their image of him brick by brick. He couldn't find the angle. For maybe the first time in his life, there was no spin. It was a difficult time, he finally said. We made decisions. You threw me out, I said. Calm. Steady. Because your reputation mattered more than your child. Tyler stepped up onto the stage. Then Jenna. They stood beside me, not touching but there. She's telling the truth, Tyler said, his voice carrying through the ballroom. Jenna and I were in that house that night. We watched from upstairs while our parents put our 17-year-old sister out in the cold. We didn't say anything. That was on us. And we've lived with it. The whispers became a roar. Miss Beverly Okafor, who had flown up from Portland that morning, stood up in the back of the room. 77 years old, white hair, spine straight as a flagpole. I was their neighbor, she said loudly. I watched that child stand out in the cold with her bag until she walked away. I'm the one who gave her a place to sleep. The Hendersons never once asked where she went. The live stream comments were moving too fast to read. I handed the microphone back to my dad. He took it like a man in a dream. I didn't come here to destroy you, I said quietly, just for those of us on that stage. I came here to stop disappearing. Then I turned back to the camera one last time and raised my voice. I'm not asking for your sympathy. I built a life without the Henderson family. My design company does over $3 million a year. My daughter is heading to UW in the fall on a full scholarship. We did that ourselves. I looked into the lens. I'm here because last week my parents tried to buy my silence. I'm here because they deserve to face what they did in front of the community they value more than their own children. Haley climbed up beside me. She took the microphone. I'm Haley, the granddaughter they never wanted to meet. 17 years old. I've known my whole life that my grandparents chose their reputation over my mom, and by extension over me. She looked at Robert and Patricia. Her voice didn't shake. You could have known me. You could have been at my birthday parties, my school plays, my whole life. She paused. You chose not to. And none of that was ever our fault. She handed back the microphone and walked off the stage. I followed her. Behind us, the crystal ballroom dissolved into chaos. The door I turned back one last time. One more thing. My voice cut through the noise. I'm not suing you. I'm not contesting anything. Those disinheritance papers you signed 17 years ago, I'm keeping them as a reminder of who you chose to be. Not as a weapon. My dad looked up, confused. He'd been bracing for a legal fight. But if you ever spread lies about me or Haley again, if you try to contact her without her consent or cook up some new version of this story for your friends, every document I have goes public. I have the letter. I have time-stamped photos. I have 2 witnesses. I nodded toward Miss Beverly and toward Tyler and Jenna. And now I have a room full of them. Vivian appeared at my elbow. Ready? Yeah. As we stepped through those doors, I heard Pastor Greg's voice behind us. Robert, Patricia, I think we need to talk tonight. The November air hit my face, cold and clean. Haley took my hand. Did we do the right thing? I thought about a 17-year-old girl standing on a porch in the cold with a duffel bag. I thought about 17 years of building something from nothing, of every dollar stretched and every setback pushed through, of every moment I'd spent proving I was worth something to a world that hadn't asked my parents' opinion. We told the truth, I said. We set a line. We let them face what they chose. I pulled her in. That's not revenge. That's justice. What happens now? I looked up at the night sky. Now we go home. The fallout started before we got to the parking garage. By midnight, the live stream clip had been shared over 1,000 times. By morning, someone had uploaded it to YouTube under the title Woman Exposes Parents' 17-Year Lie at Their Anniversary Party, and it had 45,000 views before noon. 60-something guests left the party within the first hour. Tyler texted me updates. The city councilman left without saying goodbye to my dad. The chamber board president followed him. 3 of my parents' oldest friends apparently stopped to apologize to Tyler and Jenna on the way out. Apologized for never asking where I was, for just accepting whatever story they'd been given. By Monday, my dad had stepped down as a deacon at Cornerstone Community Church. For personal reasons, the bulletin said. Everyone knew. By Wednesday, the chamber board announced a membership review. And through all of it, I was in Seattle answering emails from potential clients. 9 new inquiries in 1 week, people who'd seen my magazine profile and just now connected it to the video. Some fallouts destroy you. Some of them clarify everything. Dana Park, the journalist who'd written my original profile, called that Thursday. Sarah, your video is absolutely everywhere. We'd love to do a follow-up. The CEO who finally told her truth. What do you think? Let me think about it, I said. But yeah, I think so. My inbox was flooded. Not all design inquiries. Most of it was something else. Your video made me call my sister for the first time in 9 years. Thank you. I was a teen mom too. Watching you gave me something I didn't know I needed. You showed me that success really is the best answer to people who tried to write you off. I read every single one. 3 weeks after the party, my mom called. I almost didn't pick up. But I did. Sarah. Her voice was smaller than I'd ever heard it. I'm not calling to ask you for anything. I don't even know how to apologize for what we did. I'm not sure I have that in me yet. Then why are you calling? Long silence. I've watched that video. The live stream. I've watched it 9 times. Another pause. I keep looking at your face. Trying to see my daughter. The one I put out in the cold. I said nothing. Your father isn't doing well. Church, his colleagues, everyone looks at him differently now. He doesn't know how to handle it. I didn't do this to punish him. I know. I think I know that now. Her voice cracked. You did it because we gave you no other choice. You did it because you had to stop pretending. Why did you really call, Mom? The longest silence yet. Because I wanted to hear your voice. Because I haven't heard it in 17 years and I was scared. I am scared that I might never hear it again. She was crying now. Because Haley stood on that stage and told 180 people she'd spent her whole life knowing we didn't want her. And I couldn't breathe. I'm not ready to forgive you, I said. I might not ever be. That's more than I deserve. Yeah, it is. We stayed on the line for another minute. Not talking. Just breathing. Then she said goodbye. She didn't ask for anything else. She didn't demand a second chance or try to negotiate a timeline. Maybe that was a start. Maybe it was just the first step on a road that never ends. I don't know yet. Thanksgiving 2024. My dining table, the one I found at an estate sale 3 years ago and refinished myself, sat 12 people for the first time ever. Haley on my right. Vivian on my left. Miss Beverly was showing my nephew how to fold napkins into cranes. Tyler was carving the turkey. Jenna's kids were arguing about who got to ring the little bell before Grace. My parents weren't there. We hadn't gotten to that point. Maybe we never will. But sitting at the head of that table, looking around at the people who had chosen to be in my life, not because of blood or obligation or what it looked like, but because they genuinely wanted to be there, I felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't felt in a very long time. Haley stood to give a toast. I wrote something for my mom. She unfolded a piece of paper. When I was little, I used to ask why I didn't have grandparents like other kids. My mom always told me the truth, that they'd made a choice, and that choice wasn't about me. It took me a long time to really understand that. She looked at me. But I get it now. And I know that everything I have, everything I am, is because she never let their choice become our story. She raised her glass. To the family you build, not the one you're handed. Everyone drank. Later, after the dishes were cleared and people were scattered through the house with coffee and pie, I stood at the kitchen window looking out at the backyard. Haley appeared beside me. "You okay?" I looked at my daughter. At this life I'd assembled from the wreckage of everything I thought I'd lost. This table full of people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they had to. "Yeah," I said. "For real. For real. So here's what I want you to take from all of this if you've stayed with me this far. 17 years ago, I was a scared 17-year-old standing in the cold, watching my parents' taillights disappear down the street. I thought my life was over. I thought I had nothing. I was wrong. I had Jake for as long as I could. I had Miss Beverly, who opened her door when she didn't have to. I had Vivian, who looked at a young single mom with a beat-up portfolio and saw something worth investing in. I had Haley, who grew up knowing the whole truth and chose to be fierce instead of bitter. And eventually I had myself. The version of me that stopped asking for permission to take up space. If you're out there carrying something like this, a family that made you feel like you had to shrink yourself to be acceptable, like your worth was conditional on their approval, I hear you. I've been exactly where you are. But here's what I know now. You don't need their validation to know what you're worth. Setting a boundary isn't cruelty, it's survival. And sometimes the family you build with your own two hands is stronger, warmer, and more real than anything you were born into. My parents still haven't apologized. Not really. My dad has barely spoken publicly since the party. My mom calls sometimes and I answer when I can. Tyler and Jenna are trying, and so am I. None of it is clean or resolved or wrapped up in a bow. But I'm not waiting for them to change before I live my life. I stopped doing that a long time ago. This isn't a fairy tale ending. It's just the truth. And the truth, it turns out, doesn't need applause. It just needs to be said out loud. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with anyone who's ever felt invisible because they need to hear this too. Thank you for listening.